Hi everyone, welcome back to Loyaltiness channel. Today I'm taking you to the Supreme Court of Ghana and I'm going to discuss a case that happened as far back as 2017-2018. And the question that we want to answer today is that if someone secretly records a conversation between you and that person on phone, or the person records you whilst you are talking to them without your knowledge, is that a breach of your right to privacy? If that is the case, can that person use that same information as evidence in courts? I mean, the information of the recording or the audio recording, can that person use that audio recording as part of evidence in courts? That is a question that the court answered in the Raphael Cubagee case in the Supreme Court. Now, the fact of Raphael Cubagee case is that a man had a land case in Sunyani District Court, right? And it was between Raphael, two people, and a church. Now, Raphael says that I am about to give my evidence, but then I have this recording which I secretly recorded between myself and one of the elders of the church who is a defendant. So all you are saying is that this church is fighting with me over this land in court. But then I have a recording from one of the elders which says that the land actually belongs to me, Raphael. And so please, court, allow me to tender or bring this audio to your notice. Now the judge listened to the video and realized that the conversation in the audio is relevant to the case. Now, the judge had to answer this question. Okay, this audio was recorded without the elder's notice. Is that a breach of privacy? If that is a breach of privacy, can this audio be used in evidence? Remember that the judge had already listened to this. But this matter of whether or not the recording is a breach of privacy or it can be used in evidence was something that amounted to interpretation of the Constitution. And so it means that it had to go back to the Supreme Court. It's only the Supreme Court who has power to look at such matters. So the District Court Judge Asiani wrote a statement or a letter to the Supreme Court that I am dealing with this case. I've gotten to this point where I have to decide whether or not to use evidence which was recorded secretly. So help me. Is it right for me to use it? Is it constitutional or it's not constitutional? Now the matter went to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court had this to say. The Supreme Court says that everybody has a right to privacy. And this is in Article 18 of the 1992 Constitution. Everybody has a right to privacy in your home, your properties, wherever you want to have privacy. So if you do not give consent or you do not agree for somebody to record you and the person records you, then the person has breached your right to privacy. The person has breached your human rights. And so the Supreme Court said that even when you are talking to someone on phone and that other person puts the phone on loudspeaker without telling you and the other people there, that amounts to a breach of privacy. Yes, they said that. And so now it sets the record straight that secret recording is a breach of human right of a person. They can sue you for that. So please take note of that. Now, after deciding on the fact that the recording or the secret recording was a breach of privacy, now they had to decide that if it is a breach of human rights, if evidence is secured through a breach of human rights, or if you are able to get evidence from someone through a breach of their human rights, can you use that evidence in court or can you use that in court? The Supreme Court said that it depends on so many things. They admitted that in other jurisdictions or in other countries, the court will say, no, just because you've breached somebody's human right to get this information will not take it at all. That is what happened in other countries. But in our country, the Supreme Court said that the human rights that we have in Ghana, they are subject to other people's rights and they are also subject to the public interest. So it doesn't mean that if you have a human right to privacy, it means that it is unlimited. You just have it. No. If you breach somebody's human rights or you do something in against public interest, then it means you have given yourself a chance for your right to privacy to be tampered with at a point. Now, the Supreme Court stated that there are a lot of conditions that will let the court decide whether or not that a statement or evidence which was gathered in breach of your human right to be used or not be used in court. So it depends. It depends on what? The court said that it will depend on the nature of the human right that has been breached. So what is the nature of the right? Is it your right to life? Is it your right to privacy? What is the extent of the breach? So if somebody has to kill or stab someone to get evidence, the court to consider how grievous that breach is, right? How deep, I mean deep in quote, how deep it is that they had to go all the way just because they want to get information. Now, the court to look at the nature of the offense or the case in court. So maybe you have killed someone and then they put a recording on you secretly so that you confess. Comparing to the way you killed someone and the information that was taken from you, who would say that just because information was taken from you secretly, your evidence should not be taken or your evidence should not be accepted in court? So the court to look at, compare between what wrong you did and what wrong somebody did to get the information. The court to look at whether or not that particular evidence is so key, is so important that there is no way you can win the other case, or the other case would be so irrelevant if you don't use the secret recording. Consider whether you intentionally recorded this for purposes of giving evidence. So we are in court, and then we know that you can let the person come and stand in the box, you show your documents, you show your other evidence to prove your case. Then you wanted to outwit the court or go behind the court. So you actually go and do the recording on your own and then come and show it to the court. The court will ask, why would you go outside of the courtroom? It means you want to bring some disrespect or disrepute towards the court, and the court will not allow you to do that. So these are some of the considerations. The court says that every case will be decided on its own merits. It means that every case is different. Every case is different. So it may be that in your case, they may accept it. In another person's case, they may not accept it. But you have to show the court why it is very important that they have to accept the recording or the video which was recorded secretly from your side. You have to give evidence. Maybe that is the only evidence you have, and that the nature of the accusations on the other party is huge and you deny it, and everything can use to show that it will be best and will support the public interest if your evidence is rather taken. I don't know if you understand me up to this point. Yeah. So somebody will ask that, so in the Raphael Cubagee case, what happened? The Supreme Court said that, number one, the case was pending in courts. Then Raphael intentionally went to have his own conversations with the elder and recorded it. It means that he was going outside of the courtroom to use his own tactics to get evidence. It was like he was bringing disrepute to the courts. Like, you can do your own job. You wanted to be your own judge, your own lawyer, your own everything, and collect the evidence while the case was still pending. The court also said that Raphael didn't show the court any reason why they should accept the evidence. So he didn't write anything in favor of why they should accept the secretly recorded evidence. He could have shown that that is the only evidence that he has. He could have shown that it will be in the best interest of the public that that evidence is accepted, or he can show that, looking at the nature of the case, it would be best that that evidence is accepted. But all this information was not given to the Supreme Court. And so it means that if you have a case like that, you have to convince the court that your rights will be more protected as compared to the person whose information has been taken without his consent. So the court will wait to see that between you and the other person whose right has been breached, who will suffer most? Who will suffer most? So did the person suffer so much because the evidence had to be taken? Or you will suffer so much if the evidence is not used in court. So you have to show the court all the things you may suffer if the court does not rule in your favor that the evidence should be used in court. So the court did not accept Raphael Cubagee's case. They did not accept his evidence because of the reasons that I have already stated. So remember that it is the discretion of every judge whether or not they should accept evidence. They have to consider whether it's relevant. And if it is relevant, will it even cause any disrepute to the court? So in this case, when the Supreme Court didn't accept Raphael Cubagee's recording, they had to transfer the case back to Sunyane for them to continue with the case. But then because the first judge in Sunyane had already listened to the recording, it meant that he may already be prejudiced. And so the judges in the Supreme Court thought it wise that they should refer the case to another judge within the same area to continue with the case. Because if they don't do that, because the other judge has listened to the recording, and the recording actually contains some very relevant information in support of Raphael's case, then the court may be prejudiced and then he will give judgment in favor of Raphael. So that is how it ended in the Supreme Court and was referred back to Sunyane for the case to continue. So remember, if anyone is gathering evidence, if you are gathering evidence for your case, please use the proper means. You have so many means to get it. Documents, if it is text message and you get a screenshot, those are permanent statements between you and the person. It is not private. You can produce that in courtroom. There are other things that you can do, but don't secretly record someone. But if you don't have any option than to secretly record someone just to prove your case, you just pray that the court will rule in your favor that this one, it was necessary, it was important to do it. Because if you had not done it, maybe it would not be in your interest and the court will be on your side. So that is all I have to say about Raphael Cubagee. I hope you learned something new today. Until we meet again, please take care of yourself and hey, share with someone so that they can also learn. Have a very, very good time. Bye.